All right, so today we're going to be learning about multiplying and dividing integers through our notes. And this is really fairly simple. It just comes down to 2 steps and 2 different rules. So the first step is that you need to look at the signs in the question to find the sign in your answer. So look at signs to find answer. And I'll talk more about what that means here in just a second. The second step is to multiply or divide as normal. So there is no keeping, flipping, nothing like that. It's all just do the math that it tells you to do, and the signs determine if your answer is going to be positive or negative at the end. So let's talk about what that looks like. So for it to be positive at the end, that means that you would have the same signs. That means both are positive, or both are positive numbers, or both are negative numbers. That would give you a positive number. So when we're looking at this, if we have a positive times a positive, we know that that's going to be a positive number because we've worked with those for a very long time. Same with dividing by positive numbers. 2 positive numbers, it's still going to be a positive number. Now, here's where it's different. Now that we're working with integers, if we have a negative number times a negative number, such as something like negative 5 times negative 2, that's going to actually become a positive number. Same with division. So if I was to have a negative number and a negative number, it would still be a positive answer. So negative 10 divided by negative 5 would be positive 2. So when you have the same sign, it's always going to be positive. Now, if you have different signs, that's when things get a little different. That's when it becomes a negative. So if I am multiplying and I have a positive number times a negative number, that's going to stay a negative number. If I have a negative number times a positive number, that's also going to stay a negative number. And these rules still apply with dividing as well. So positive divided by a negative is a negative. A negative divided by a positive is still going to be a negative number. The way that we think about this and the way that I use is think about people. If you have one person that's unhappy, it's going to make everyone else in the group unhappy, and they're going to become negative right with them. But if you have 2 negative people together, they become positive because now they have someone to complain to, and they don't bring everyone else down. So let's go ahead and flip over to the back of this page, and we're going to talk about what multiplication looks like as we get into these upper grades, and also what the number lines look like. So one thing I want to show you is how multiplication looks, and I want you to write it like right up here. I just am going to use a bigger space so you can see it better. So when we're multiplying, there's 3 ways it can show up. We're used to seeing this. We have this big, beautiful X right here, right? Well, there's 2 more ways that I want you to become more familiar with because they actually mean to multiply. And as we get up 6th through 12th grade, you're going to be seeing multiplication without an X because that becomes a part of our math equation later. The other way to do it is with a big dot. That is a multiplication point. So this is not a decimal. It's not down here. It is up in the middle where the X would be, but it's just a bigger dot. You can see it right here in this example. The other way you would see this is with parentheses and nothing there. This is where they're touching. So if they're touching, they're also multiplying. So it's a number next to another number in parentheses, and that means that they're touching, kind of like you see over here. Now that we know what multiplication looks like in different forms at this stage, let's go ahead and look at these number lines. So it says, what does 5 times negative 2 look like on a number line? So remember, with number lines, we always start at 0. So 0 is our starting point. And when we are doing number lines with multiplication, it's always a jumping method, kind of like they show in the example below. So we would have 5 groups of negative 2. That's what that means, because when we're talking about multiplication, it would be 5 groups of however many. So we're going to go negative 2 5 times. So, whoa, not what I wanted. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That was ugly. 5. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 groups, and each one of them is -2. So whenever we're multiplying on a number line, it's more of like a jumping that many times based on the groups. So when I stopped, that gave me -10. So 5 times -2 would be -10. Let's look at this second example. It says, which expression does this number line represent? Well, they started at 0, which is a good thing. And then they have 1, 2 groups, so it's going to be 2 times something. And the amount that they're moving each time is -4. So 0 times -4 in A is not our option. 4 times -2, they didn't move 4 times -2. Otherwise, that would be it. It would give you the same answer, but that's not the same spacing that we have here represented. In D, we have 2 plus -4, and we didn't add, we were multiplying. That's why we were jumping. So our only answer left would be C, and this is the touching portion. I know it doesn't look as close, but they are touching. So that means that this would be our answer, and that represents multiplication. So the question asks us, what do you notice about the answers in the 2 expressions above? And what I noticed is that one number was negative, so the answer was negative for both of those expressions, because 5 times -2 became -10, and 2 times -4 became -8. We're going to go ahead and apply those rules down here with these integers, and let's try it out for ourselves. So we have 4 times -4. Our steps are to look at the signs, determine the answer sign, and then do the multiplication. So I have a positive times a negative. That means that my answer would be negative because there's only one negative. I would go ahead and do my math. 4 times 4 is 16. So that means that this answer would be -16. We'll do this again with number 2. I have -8 times -2, so negative times a negative means that my answer will be positive because they have the same sign. Now I'm just going to do the multiplication. 8 times 2 is also 16, so that means that the answer for this one will be positive 16. This next one, this is where they're touching, so we have -2 times 3. So I would have a negative times a positive, which means my answer is going to be negative. And I know that 2 times 3 equals 6, so my answer will be -6. And then in number 4, we have -5 times -4, so I have a negative times a negative, which means it will be a negative answer, a positive answer, my goodness. Positive because we have 2 of them, and 5 times 4 is 20. So my answer would be 20 as a positive. Let's look at that dividing side. We have 4 divided by -4. The rules still apply. Nothing has changed in terms of the rules. So we have a positive divided by a negative, which means that my answer will become negative. Then I just do the math. 4 divided by 4. 4 goes into 4 one time. So that means my answer will be -1. This next one is -8 divided by -2. So we have a negative divided by a negative, which means my answer will be positive because they're the same sign. Now I just do the division. 8 divided by 2. 2 goes into 8 4 times. So that means that my answer will be +4. And my last two, we have a -15 divided by 3. So a negative divided by a positive is going to stay a negative. So 15 divided by 3. 3 goes into 15 5 times. And that gives us -5 as our answer choice here. And then in our very last one, same rules every single time, just different numbers. So we have a negative divided by a negative, which means my answer is going to be positive. So we'll do the math. 20 divided by 4. 4 goes into 20 5 times, which means that my answer will be +5. As long as you're following the integer rules, multiplying with numbers that are positive and negative should not be an issue because it's the same thing as multiplying normally. You just have to pay attention to those rules Same sign, positive. Different signs, negative.